OLS-1 call. So we've had 3 rounds of final presentations before this. We had some 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had another one earlier today. And people are effectively, after 15 weeks, actually it's 18 weeks now, of our various cohort calls and one-on-one mentoring calls, we are presenting what we've been working on and what we've been learning over the last few weeks and months. And so we have several people who are planning to present today. Everyone has 5 minutes. We'll give you about a minute overrun if you need to, but if you run over time, we will ask you just to write questions in the doc. If you don't run over time, we'll have time for a question or 2 each. And we also have a few people here who are have joined the call to spectate and cheer on some of our friends. So welcome everyone. We're so delighted to have you here with us today. And I think I have a few quick reminders. One is that we have a code of conduct. So that generally means treat one another with respect and the way you'd like to be treated. There's always more to that in any code of conduct. So you can click on that and you can have a read through what that means. And if at any point you experience or witness anything that is unacceptable or not in line with the code of conduct, you can contact team@openlifesci.org. If it is something that myself, Malvika, or Berenice may have done, I sincerely hope it's not the case, but if it is, then you can contact one of us directly so that you don't have to contact the whole team. And our email addresses are all in the call notes at the minute. And with that, I think that's everything else we need. Oh, one more thing I'll add is that we have a small Friends of OLS section at the top of the document. So if there's anyone you would like to shout out, someone who has been an amazing help or support or just anything that you're really proud of and you would like to share with the others, then please just add names, links, whatever it may be in there in the Friends of OLS document. And I think we will start with our presentations. So it looks like, Lena, you are at the top. How are you feeling?
All right, I'm very nervous, almost like a school exam.
Oh, don't worry, you'll pass with flying colors.
Am I sharing? No, I'm not. Am I sharing? I'm not sharing.
No.
Start sharing. Find the right window. Okay, there we go.
We can see it.
Okay, can you also see it as a slideshow now, right?
Yep, perfect.
So I prepared this like a bit as a story of my project, but also the story of my life. Okay, here I start. So between 2019 and 2020, I was actually switching between 2 jobs. I was moving from a somewhat technical role as a data manager to a role of a network weaver or a community manager. And I had this very vague belief that this will make me very happy, but I also didn't really understand well what the new role requires from me. And I saw some nice initiatives. For example, I saw something called the Data Champion Network at TU Delft, which I really liked. I heard from Mateusz, who is also on this call now, about Open Life Science program, and I was very excited and wanted to get in. This was like the last day to apply, and I had this idea, well, if I take the Data Champions program from TU Delft to my new university, the Free University of Amsterdam, then this will all fit together perfectly. So this is the idea behind the program. We want to give visibility to researchers at different faculties who are willing to volunteer their expertise and help their colleagues with data management. Yeah, so we somehow create a website, highlight their work, and make this wonderful network of ambassadors. So I started my new role at the Free University of Amsterdam. And of course, like the first weeks are very scary because you don't know what's going on. You keep your goal inside, but at the same time, is it even needed here? Is it feasible? Like on this picture, you can see all my insecurities coming for a party. So that's quite challenging. Then things start to get clearer, and I realized that I actually have quite some work to do. For example, I have to coordinate the support personnel at the university that works with researchers. I'm also helping to run the help desk for researchers who come with questions. I'm also responsible for all kinds of outreach for researchers, so I need to organize like events of general interest. So I'm trying to resume data conversations that were once started there. And I'm also teaching because my colleague is on maternity leave, so I took over her classes. So I kind of get the hang of it. I understand how things work, and I think I can go. The only problem is that above me is this rock of things that need to be done urgently. And with the COVID-19, this rock beautifully lands on me, as you can see on this picture, and on top of the rock is my toddler son, because the daycare is closed. So yeah, this is how the project looked in March. And this is where I want to shout out to my mentor, Patricia, who, like at that moment we talked and I was really in despair, and Patricia told me, you know what, I understand that this is crazy, and yeah, it's tough, but you know what, this is also the safest moment you can find to fail, because everyone is rediscovering things, everyone is trying out something new. Whatever you try, if it fails, it will be okay. So just don't go crazy, but if you can try something out, just go and do it. And this was so empowering. I just want to thank Patricia for that. And another thing that happened to me is that one of the data stewards from the university, Brett Olivier, found my project on GitHub. And he said, yeah, this is exactly what we need. Like, I really want to work with you on that. Let's create this website and let's start going. So the final slide, that's my huge shout out to all the people who are supporting me. Yeah, my family is taking care of me and letting me work on some projects. I am really grateful for that. Patricia, my mentor, Esther and Maria are on this call today. And I'm also very happy about this communities, OLS, but also CSCCE, that the communities partially overlap. And I think I would have felt very lonely if I were not part of these communities from the beginning. So I'm so lucky and happy, and I'm very happy with my colleagues at TU.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lena. And I still have 6 seconds left. Great timing. Okay, that's really fantastic. We have some comments coming in the comment section. So someone says, I'm really enjoying the hand-drawn slides and loving the positive attitude about having the courage to take risks. That's really fantastic. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask out loud? Okay, no worries. So feel free to +1, add more comments and questions into the doc. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and I can still see some more that's being typed out there. That's really fantastic. So huge round of sparkle applause for Elena. You know, I love to scream the woo like I'm at a rock concert, but that would just kill everyone on the Zoom, so I won't do that. Okay, and it looks like if we move on to our next talk, it is Matos. Matos, are you ready?
Yes, I hope so. I'm trying to share my screen. Yes, can you see the slides?
Good? Yep.
Perfect. So my name is Matus Kalas, and I work at the University of Bergen in Norway. And I'm going to tell you about my journey through OLS with the EDAM ontology project. So what is EDAM first? It's a collection of about 4,000 concepts in bioscientific data analysis. There are some examples on the background. And in addition to those, there are some definitions and relations and synonyms of this concept. So you can imagine it like a thesaurus for bioinformatics or bioscientific data analysis in general, with some additional hierarchy. And why this is useful? So one of the use cases for EDAM is to help searching for tools and training materials and other resources. An example of that is bio.tools community registry, where over 17,000 bioinformatics tools are registered at the moment, and they are annotated with the concepts from the EDAM ontology to be able to search for what scientists need. Another example registry is this BIII, which is a community registry for the bioimage analysis community, where they also use the EDAM. Another use case for EDAM is the common workflow language, where EDAM is used to specify the inputs and output data in the workflows. So EDAM has been an open community collaboration running for quite many years already, and with the 3 main leaders, including John, Hervé, and me, and a lot of contributors. However, it's been open, but it could be more open. So last time I said that we must have over 100 contributors, but just the fact that we are not exactly sure how many contributors we have and who they are, it's already pointing to some opportunities for improvements. So here comes my OLS project, which is about EDAM extensions and especially enabling specialized communities to develop EDAM for their needs. We had a number of such requests. And one example project that has been successful so far is the EDAM bioimaging, which is the extension of EDAM done together with the bioimage analysis community. And one very new improvement is getting together with some machine learning experts and developing the bits in EDAM for machine learning, and especially deep learning. And we have some more requests. So what we really want to do is to make it easier for the different communities to develop EDAM for their domains. But how to do it, how to be able to scale up. And this is where the Open Life Science program comes in, and including the Mozilla Open Leaders framework that has been extremely helpful, pointing me in the right direction. Here I show some main buzzwords that I learned, and then we are absolutely going to use. And thank you all very much. Namaste.
Amazing, great job. And with plenty of time this time.
Yeah.
Amazing, that's really good. Does anyone have any questions we'd like to ask of Matus about EDAM or about the project? Something, yeah.
Matus, can you tell us what would be your next step in this?
Mm-hmm. So we kind of have a roadmap ongoing that I still haven't published on GitHub, but I'll promise to do it. And one of the very next steps is to create a template repository for the different communities, where with kind of clear instructions and some all the seeds that they need to keep growing. And this is something that we've been kind of trying for a long time, and now it has been clear how we really want to do it. And it's pretty much waiting for a bit of refactoring that turned out that it needs to be done before we can do it in a good way. But that's the next step, definitely. And the governance model, which needs to be updated as well. Yeah, and then of course networking and talking to more people and so.
Awesome. We have one more question in the notes saying, you mentioned you'd like to be more open. Could you elaborate if you had any specific ideas about what that meant?
Yes, definitely. So we have been engaging community in some way, but not in the really the best way that, for example, OLS recommends, and Mozilla Open Leaders and so on. So it's been a bit like kind of open community work from year 2010, I would say. And yeah, we want to upgrade that, definitely. We need to upgrade to be able to scale up to the requirements that we are getting. Well, yeah.
Okay, we have some more comments and questions in the document, but I think we need to move on. So I don't know if you want to have a bit of a look at that and maybe answer them when you have a minute. It looks like next up we have Zoe. Zoe, are you ready? Oh, and Matos, can
Yes.
you? Oh, yeah, we're good now.
Just a second. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Looks perfect.
Okay. So I would like to tell about our project about benchmarking environment for bioinformatic tools. The bioinformatic in general is very diverse, and lots of tools emerge every day, and every new tool it needs to be tested against already known tools in this area. So we have lots of benchmarks need to be done. And as for now, we have lots of huge duplication of efforts because different groups, they redo the same benchmarks with the same tools, just adding their own extra tool. And the second problem we have is conflict of the interests, because the majority of benchmarks is provided by the creators of one of the tools benchmarked. So we have the lack of fair benchmarks, of fair independent benchmarks. And the main reason why we have such a lack is because it is hard to make a fair benchmark. And so the aim of our project was to make it a little bit easier. So the idea was to make some reusable framework for benchmarking of bioinformatic tools. And the main challenges each person designing a benchmark bumps into, they're listed on the slide. They're connected to some difficulties in the running of concrete tools because of some dependencies and so on. And there are also some really questions about the design of the benchmarking study, which contain the choice of particular data sets and choice of metrics and choice of parameters for each tool and each data set. And there are already known ways to deal with it, and they involve some controlled environments, such as Docker and automatic parameter fitting protocols, and also unified data sets and metrics, as we have, for example, in the area of computer science, but not in bioinformatics yet. So to provide some first attempt, our first prototype, we needed first to choose the area of our attempts. And we wanted this area to be, first of all, alive with something interesting happening just now with new tools emerging. And also we wanted these tools to be fully compatible with each other, because it is quite a common situation when we have some list of tools doing some different tasks. And so we have chosen finally the area of allelic imbalance, and which means the following. Imagine you have deployed genome with one copy came from father, one paternal and one maternal copy, and some genes, they may have been biased in their expression. For example, they are mostly expressed from the paternal allele. This is called allelic imbalance. And so their whole task is to estimate such allelic imbalance from the, for example, RNA-seq data. And so what we did, we simulated such a data set. We simulated RNA-seq from the some genomes with controlled allelic imbalance, where we know when we know the ground truth. And we checked whether some of the two of the most famous tools in this area, are they able to restore the values, the true values. As for now, the results are not really interesting because it seems like our simulations were too simple for these tools to, to deal with them. And you can see that the agreement of the true values with the restored values, the correlation coefficient for the two tested tools is quite similar and quite high. And each dot is one data set. But if looking into details and into these tiny differences among diagonal, we can see that in the majority of cases, one of them is slightly better than another one. The project is developing, we're working on it, and so we plan to add more realistic simulations with ground truth. We also plan to work with real life data without ground truth, and to to compare different tools in it, and to add more tools. And when we have a working prototype, we want to contact with tool developers to discuss with them proper metrics, data sets, and parameter search procedures. So I'd like to thank very much Asia, who is working with me on this project, and my mentor, Luis Pedro Coelho, and of course, thanks very much for this whole program.
Yay, thank you so much. That's fantastic. So we have one comment on the document saying, love the aesthetics of the slides. And I agree, they are absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
I think I can take control back if you like.
Yeah, please take it. I'm too nervous to do it myself.
Stop. There we go. Okay, right. We should be back. And so we have some more comments just coming in on the document. We have looks like a massive project, so kudos for taking it on. And people saying they love the presentation style, so fantastic. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free to just add those into the doc. I'm sure Zoe will be keeping an eye and answer any questions or comments that may come up. And I think we will move on to the documentation for agricultural data and software. So which of you three is presenting?
That is me again.
Awesome.
And I will share presentation. And I also put a link to the presentation in the Google Doc. Oh, oops, that's not gonna click on. Okay, so everybody can see that, right? Yep, okay, awesome. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to talk about some of the stuff that we've learned and some of the progress we've made on our documentation for one of our projects through Open Life Science. So it's me, Christina, along with one of my coworkers, Emily, and our boss and the leader of our group, David. And so our group is referred to as the Digital Agriculture Group, or DIAG. We're at the University of Arizona. And one of the main focuses of our group is to develop software and provide open data sets that will enable good agricultural research and hopefully take some of the burden of bespoke pipelines and redundant data off of researchers. And so with that in mind, we have, for all of our projects, our general goals are to make all of our software and all of our data more usable to anybody who could benefit from it. And one of our longer term goals is to enable people who use our products to be able to contribute back easily to them to make them even better. And so we have a lot of projects we're working on. The one that we focused on for Open Life Science is the drone processing pipeline. And so basically the idea behind this is a researcher should be able to go out and fly a drone over a field of crops, take a bunch of data, and then use our pipeline to process the data so it's usable for analyses. And so some of our goals for Open Life Science for this project was to improve our documentation for the pipeline. And that's really with the intention to make this pipeline more easy to use to anybody who kind of wants to come in and use it. And part of that, we needed to really identify who our users are, who our contributors could be, and what sort of needs they have to try to fulfill those with our pipeline. And so one of the things that we had a chance to do through Open Life Science is actually talk to one of our users. It was actually a person who is using a similar pipeline that our group is developing, but it has a lot of overlap conceptually, and him and some of his people in his class were using it for a project. And so it was helpful to be able to talk to him. He let us know that it was really important to have multiple lines of communication going to be able to ask questions about how to use the pipeline. And it was really crucial, kind of unfortunately, that they had to have regular contact with one of the developers of the pipeline in order to use it, which is not our intention long term. But it was good to know that was important. And so some of the barriers for using the pipeline that he identified were that it did take quite a few technical skills to be able to use it at this point in time. And they were working with a large volume of data. And so they spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to manage all of that data. And so we definitely want to keep having these conversations with users in the future, and especially maybe targeting some more advanced users to begin with, because the pipelines are a little bit advanced to use, and definitely get in touch with other developers to know what they need to get started. And so in terms of some of the other stuff that we worked on through Open Life Science, in terms of the actual documentation, we already had pre-existing documentation, but it wasn't really in a cohesive unit yet. And so we decided where sort of our main landing page would be, so our main website for people to go to start looking at the pipeline documentation. And that has we'll have our personas and tools lists on it. That then links to the GitHub repos where all of the actual software lives, which then links to a second website, which has more of the technical documentation intended for people who are developing or want to add their own algorithms. So yeah, we accomplished a lot of stuff through Open Life Science, especially with identifying users and contributors. I showed you a lot of the documentation that we've moved forward with through Open Life Science. And definitely one of the important things was working on this as a team with some of the developers for the pipeline, and then some of us other team members who were focusing on the documentation a little bit more. And so with that in mind, one of the challenges of working on a project like this, I think, is sort of there's a lot of people working on it, so kind of communicating well with everybody and everybody sort of agreeing with things before you move on with it can take a little bit of time and effort. So that was good to know. It was difficult and we're still working on how to figure out how to organize our documentation so it's easy to use and intuitive. And it also took us a while, like half of the program, to figure out which of our projects to focus on. And so for some of our immediate next steps is to polish up our personas and put them on the website, and then have corresponding tools lists for each level of user, starting from someone who just wants to use it to somebody who wants to develop on it. And we also want to identify people who are new users who can help us sort of get feedback on how good the documentation is for someone who's not seen it before. And yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways, especially for me from Open Life Science, was that we can't just create products, we can't create data sets and tools and put them out there and expect people to be able to use them easily. Like, we really have to move up to the next level, which is, how do I make this useful to people? How do I engage with the community? And how do I make them feel like they're part of something bigger that they can give back to? So it's been really, really awesome. So thanks to everybody who is involved in Open Life Science, and some of the people who are specifically working on our project. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a really great presentation. So does anyone have any questions or comments for Christina? We definitely have some in the documents, so I can see we're admiring the cactus logo, which is absolutely gorgeous. Attention to the user perspective. I will absolutely second that. It is really cool just seeing that you actually spent time like interviewing and communicating with users. It's really great. As well as we like how you approach your work with humor and also acknowledging barriers and critical feedback. It's really good. So oh yeah, okay, sorry, I got confused which window I was looking at there. Back on track now. So I think we will move on to the next presentation. So that is, I believe, Billy.
Billy, are you sparkles for their presentation?
Thank you for the reminder. Oh my gosh. Great job, Christina. And thank you, Malvika. Right, Billy, are you ready?
I am. Let's see. Can everyone see the slide?
We can.
And real quick, if I advance, everyone can see it advanced for everyone, right?
It did. Great job.
Okay, cool. I had issues with that one, so I just wanted to make sure before I got going. All right, so I'm going to talk about Planoptic, which is a package I've been working on with some other grad students and postdocs in my lab to help researchers understand how their computational models make sense of images. And to explain what that very dense sentence just meant, I'm going to take a step back. As I'm sure people are aware, over the past decade or so, computers have gotten much better at dealing with images and doing interesting things with images, as we can see with like Malika's wonderful Zoom background, how it does a good job of outlining her and only presenting the background behind her. And one of the benchmarks that the research community has used as part of this like explosion of machine learning has been ImageNet, which consists of millions of images, all of which contain a single object like this, along with a label, in this case, panda. And the goal of models is to learn properly learn the label of all of these images. And models rapidly got very, very good at this task, surpassing even human performance. And when that happens, you might look at this and say, okay, the models are probably understanding the image in a similar way to how humans are doing, because they're able to do this on millions of images. So how do they know this is a panda? Models see that it's black and white, it's fuzzy, it's got this chubby little bear face, therefore it's a panda. But starting in 2013, something called Adversarial Examples came about to show probably not what's happening. With adversarial examples, you add a specially designed pattern, which to us just looks like random noise, and you end up with a new image. Again, to humans, these two look identical, but the model is now convinced that this is a given. So clearly that description I just gave you is not how models are understanding the image, and it's very hard to figure out how exactly they're doing that. The goal of Planoptic is to provide researchers some additional tools to help address this question. And so how do we do that? Well, when you have any model, it has three components. You can, in an abstract sense, think of three components. You have the input, the parameters, and the output. And often people will simulate where they'll hold the input and the parameters constant and run it to get a prediction for the output, or you'll fit the model where you'll give it the input and the output and use optimization to find the parameters that best fit the data. But there's nothing special about the input. So you can also hold the parameters and the output constant and use optimization to generate a new input, in this case, an image. And that's what we call synthesis, where you're generating a new image. And so for an example of what that can do, here I build a model that's modeling a part of the human visual system. I'm showing it this image of Einstein, and I'm saying, all right, Planoptic, use optimization to find me another image that the model thinks is identical. And so that's what's happening here. It's gradually adjusting the pixels. This is the loss, and as this gets lower and lower, the model thinks these two images are more and more similar. And then this is the loss in different components of the model. And after this runs for a while, what we end up with is another image that is physically different from this image, but that the model thinks are identical. And we can use that to generate a whole bunch of images and run an experiment. Or we can inspect this and say, okay, clearly something different's happening at the nose here, so my model probably isn't seeing what's happening in the center of the image. And if you can see, there's high frequencies, little bits of high frequency patterns around the edges here, so my model probably doesn't think high frequencies are important either. So that's the goal of Planoptic, is to generate images like this. And when I started OLS back in January, we had already been working on this project for a while, so we had a good idea of the content we wanted to include, but everyone working on the project were grad students and postdocs in neuroscience, and so we had never built any we had never built an open source software package before. So we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know how we could make this useful to the community. And that was the goal through OLS, was to learn more about that. And we spent time working on the introduction to the beginning of the README to make this more accessible and understandable to new users. We fleshed out the roadmap, made it more explicit, thought about what was our minimum viable product, when would we want to have our version 1.0 and throw this up on pip, and how exactly would we get there. We put together a bug report template. We added a code of conduct and put together a contributing guide to think about, and thought about some good first issues. And we spent time thinking about who are our users, who are different types of users, how can we reach them, and how can we make sure this is useful for them. So that that's what this program has really given me, is emphasizing that science is a social endeavor. And I swear I was laughing as I was watching Christina's talk, because I was planning on saying the exact same thing about the importance of not just making a useful packet, a useful bit of science and putting it out there, but about making sure you know who your audience is, you know how you can engage them in the project, and you know how to build a community that welcomes them. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, everyone. Thanks especially to my mentor, Rodrigo, and to Malvika, Yo, and Berenice for putting this together, as well as all the other open seeds.
Your timing was impeccable. Did you have a timer?
I did have a timer.
I noticed you sped up in the last few seconds. That was really amazing. Great job. So we have some comments coming in.
You.
We have Paul Gibbon. We have at least 2 different people saying, thank you very much for explaining that so clearly. I would absolutely second that, because watching this actually today, it just totally, the penny dropped that if you reverse engineer it, then suddenly you can see what the image thinks it is, even if it's not really that. And it just suddenly made perfect sense. A great job. Does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask verbally?
Someone, I didn't ask this, someone else asked when
yes,
the
I need
GitHub
to
repo
share
is going to be open. Sorry.
I didn't, because of the crosstalk, I didn't catch the question.
Oh, when is the GitHub repo going to be made open? And I guess I'm interested in sort of how you decide when to do that.
Yeah, so that was one of the, we spent a while talking about that. It was one of those things where we didn't realize we all had different, there's a core group of 5 of us working on this. So we didn't realize we all had different thoughts about when this should be open and when, what our minimum viable product was and all of that, until we were kind of forced to talk about it. We're going to make it public probably in June. And then our aim is to have our version 1.0 and have it up on pip by the end of the summer. So end of August, beginning of September. We will see, depending on how everyone productive can be while still working from home. So that's the plan though.
Cool. Esther, did you have a question as well? Okay, so if there's any more questions, it's fine just to add those into the document. I'm sure Billy will be keeping an eye on that section to answer any questions and comments. And let's move on to Renato. How are you?
How's everyone? All good, all good. So yeah, so I guess I will, let me see if I can start sharing. Can you all see my slide?
Looks good.
Okay, good. So yeah, so maybe I can go straight to it. So to start with, I have to say that I joined OLS in part because of Malvika. We have a lot of background, we have a lot of history together. I actually succeeded her previous position, and so I was given this unsurmountable responsibility of making sure that I don't just throw it all out the window and make it collapse. And this is together with Toby Hodges. This is the BioIT project that I'm displaying here. So I had the pleasure to join this project in January, and even though I was already at EMBL and I already knew the values and the goals of the project, to actually get my hands on it and be able to contribute as much as I have up to now was a very interesting challenge. Although at the same time was also a big responsibility, because I wanted to find a little bit of space where I could maybe bring something new or innovate somehow. And this is how the BioIT project still remains, but at the same time, I decided to create a bit of a how-to focus and to increase the capacity of the project, because it's a two-man project, two-person project, and so we are still, even though we have a big community, the main drive is still somewhat limited, and so we decided to create this project which focuses on creating recordings of sessions. And the OLS was bringing not just the context, but also the framework and all the strategic aspects of how to make this project succeed. And so by doing that, we started by defining a roadmap where we focus on what would be the interesting aspects of like what could we tackle, what would be a good material to start with for these recordings. And tackling all the different aspects that OLS also suggested. I learned a lot from the exercise of the personas, the different aspects of how to present and how to make the project open and sustainable, and at the same time to make sure that it's accessible. And so which tools we were actually picking for these approaches were also very important. And so I was already familiar with Blender. I was not so familiar with Open Broadcaster, but these two tools are amazing examples of how open source science and open source software can grow. And so the project is still very much ongoing. There's quite a few lessons that we have learned so far, but many more will come. And so COVID was an extremely challenging aspect of the project. While being sent home, suddenly everyone was at home, bored in front of their screens, sometimes asking for materials, asking for content, and this was very demanding. So although for some people staying at home was not a disrupt on their normal routine, for me, for Toby, and for the BioIT community was quite an increase, because everyone was suddenly reaching out to us. And while specifically for the recordings, and while collecting feedback on what would be a good material, what would be a good format, and how to actually present these training materials to people, one of the main points that was raised is that people don't really like to spend time listening to very long videos. And so some lessons that we learned, one was clearly that we need to go for very small videos, very short if possible. Then people also mentioned that videos are very hard to search, and so to actually have an index or to have transcripts if possible is definitely a must. And even though videos are very good, some people say, I really want this. Other people say, oh, I still prefer text. And so the compromise here is to try to see if we can fit both in a format. And then while many of the e-learning platforms require some kind of commitment, this was something that we definitely don't want to have. We want to give everyone the ability to actually navigate the content on their own free time and flexibility, to not force a specific structure on this. And so with that, I would like to just thank everyone, in particular Malvika, which has shares some of the same love that I do for Studio Ghibli. So it's always nice to see her with Studio Ghibli backgrounds. She's an amazing mentor. She's been super supportive throughout. And then also to Yo and Bernice and all the Open Life Science people and all the open seats, and EMBL BioIT for the project. So thanks.
Amazing, thank you so much. And that last one definitely made me laugh with Malvika's background. So we have some comments coming in on the document. We have video with text and text with video. 100% agree. I thought that was really good. That slide, that some of the learnings was really, really interesting. Love the humor and the cat pictures, and that we love seeing the connection with Malvika's previous work. That's really, really cool. So if anyone has any more questions that you'd like to add, please add those into the document or comments as well. And if not, I believe it's Bruno and Nara.
Hi, I think I'm gonna talk. Nara was here, but I think she had to leave. Oh, she's here. So hi everyone, I'm gonna share my screen. Just a second. Share screen. Everyone can see?
We can. I can't see the present mode. Oh, no, we can. Looks good.
That's good. Okay, just set time alert. Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Bruno, and me and Narayana, we conducted a project called Biodiversidade em Foco this semester, and well, the name is in Portuguese, but it can be roughly translated to Biodiversity in Focus. And we were mentored by Renato Alves, well, the last presenter. So our project had the main goal to gather a small community of scientists focused in biodiversity here in Brazil, and to provide them a platform so they can share a little bit of their experiences in research and their knowledge about biodiversity. So our platform is in Twitter, it's a Twitter account, and it functions basically with one creator per week, which means that every week a different researcher, different scientist will manage the account and create content for the account. So curators are mainly graduate students that are interested in learn and practice a little bit more of science communication in Brazil. So the project is led by me and Ariana, and our main task is to create the basic structure for the project to work, and also to organize so every member of our small community have a shot in managing the account and creating these contents. And we are helped by two moderators, Lydia and Romulo, and they are graduate students here in Brazil, and their main tasks are to give feedbacks to the creators when they are asked for, and also create an interesting and safe environment on WhatsApp so we can interact with the creators and also make them comfortable in creating these contents. And we were very compelled to work on this project this semester because we know that Brazilian people does not care so much about science. If we see the program for international student assessment, we can observe that teenage students in Brazil are well below the worldwide average in science performance. And this does not hold for kids, this holds for adults as well. The current government is really strongly and clearly against science, as he cuts a lot of funding for science and education, and his government panel is composed by a lot of people that are flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, and that believe that the current COVID-19 is not to worry too much about, and that we should not take the WHO's advice so seriously. And this is a fair picture of the average Brazilian as well, as 90% of Brazilians cannot name a single local scientist or a scientific institution in Brazil. And also they do not visit scientific and cultural space as museums, and Brazilians trust religious leaders more than scientists to give them advice about health, environment, or technology. And this has major issues for the healthcare, education, and environment in Brazil. So that's why we felt very compelled to work on this in a science communication project. So what we have done so far, we created our account like 3 weeks ago. We launched the platform online, and we are in the third week of functioning and in our second creator management. And until now, we have more than 400 followers, and we had a lot of engagement of people. And I think, at least for me, the most interesting day so far, it was a day that one of our creators, Veronica, she's a PhD student here in Rio de Janeiro, and she made a thread about how inequality in Brazil stopped her to pursue a scientific career for a long time, and how she overcame those challenges here. And a lot of people identified with her and interacted with her, and we felt very happy that we could start this conversation, this discussion with people, even if in a small scale. So we also have a website. The website gather information about past curators and the content they created, and also gives us information about how people can interact with, contact us, and make and join our community. We have enough creators for our project to work until the end of July, but some people are getting in touch with us to join our community. So I think we can extend a little bit more, and more people will join, hopefully. But we are still unsure about how we can constantly evaluate our progress or achievements in this time, and how we can broaden our audience. So if you have any tip or any suggestion, please feel free to talk to us here or later by Twitter or by our personal emails. So thank you, everyone. That's it.
Amazing, great job. Huge sparkles for this. So we have some comments in the doc. We have, wow, within a week you grew from 200 to 420 followers. I agree, that is incredibly impressive. And some more love, very impressed with the rapid growth. It's really amazing and very inspiring as well. Does anyone have any questions or comments? So I have to admit that I'm a bit jealous because I really want to see this content and my Portuguese is non-existent.
I'm sorry.
If you want to broaden it to English, I am here to read this.
I think we're gonna talk about it later on.
That is really amazing.
Can I quickly ask Bruno and Nara, how do you record all these amazing threads that your curators are posting? For example, do you document them afterwards, or they only stay on Twitter?
So that's the plan. In our website, we want to add an interview with each curator about, so he can explain, he or she, actually, they can explain their research and their participation research. So, and we want to gather all the Twitters, posts and threads, at least the most important one, so people can access later the tweets. So it's gonna be in the website.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you so much, Bruno and Nara. So I think, Christine, you look like you might be ready.
I'm here. Let's see if I'm ready. I feel like I said it all last week. Thank you for all the positive feedback. So I'm going to try and I'm only aiming to do as well as I delivered it last week. But here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. And let's do this. Okay, so again, I'm talking about metrics for open source research software. Can you guys see all right, can we see the slides? Yeah, all right, here we go. So my world in terms of open source software and research, the perspective that I'm coming from is that I work with and for LORIS, which is a multimodal research data platform for neuroimaging, genomics, biobanking, clinical data, all kinds of stuff for really large studies. So what my lab does in addition to this database is we do neuroinformatics, which I tell my mom is computer science for neuroscience. And as in that context, as a group, we're engaged in making like bigger open source platforms for transdisciplinary, larger processes in science. And we do all this in keeping in mind that our goal is really to support better, faster, and or more opener science, including at the Montreal Neurological Institute, which is officially an open science institution. So for that context, with these big platforms, funding really matters, not just funding to execute one project, but funding to sustain the platform. This takes maintenance and it takes maintainers to keep these platforms open, sustainable, accessible, and basically workable for other researchers who come along and want to use them. There's a little bit of a truism in project management that I think applies from my experience with applying with funding agencies, which is that you in project management or engineering, you'd say you can't fix what you can't measure. And it's kind of like in funding, you'd say you can't fund what you can't measure. So metrics are important, and metrics are often not useful and relevant. The other question, which I'm not going to get into today, is how do you fund better software versus the popular software that is out there in the field? And how do you kind of untangle that problem? For example, a lot of researchers apply for funding to make new platforms, saying, you know, kind of like, if you build it, they will come. Is that true? How do you determine whether that's true? How do you prove that's true? And how do you argue for that? Because as we all know, as we've all seen, the way that software really gets spread and shared and adopted is through user network effects, AKA also parochialism. You use what you grew up with, or what you were trained on, or what your friends use often. So I have an acronym for YO, which is what's your stack, which is how do you communicate value and impact for your particular software, tool, or environment. So scale in terms of how big can it get, how broad can it reach, how many users and domains can it help, time in terms of accelerating your science, adaptability in terms of the ease of use and transition onto the platform, quality in terms of improving all the things about your data and your processes that increase data publishability and reproducibility. I'm not going to go into today like utility, usability, reliability, replicability, automation, but just know that those terms are part of the umbrella narrative here. So what I've done in this project is to survey the landscape and challenges, including looking at some of the research software engineering groups that are out there who are focused mainly on coding best practices and the user friendliness or utility of software, which is a great starting point for this field and building consensus, but doesn't quite reach what I was looking for in terms of funding, metrics, and information about your platform on that level. Relevant benchmarking is important because reproducibility isn't always a gold standard that works in all settings and is meaningful necessarily across data sets and domains, depending on how you measure it. OSS distributions also have challenges because, for example, if you distribute your software on GitHub, which is how you kind of indicate your legitimacy, it's a way of signaling legitimacy for your platform, you then have no access to information about who downloaded it and any way to reach those people. As well, user testimonials are effective, but they can be too qualitative. I'm going to keep going because I'm almost out of time. And now I can't switch slides. Okay, so the dream is to produce metrics that are meaningful and not domain specific, possibly using a scale of assessment, so not binary, not too reductive. A self-evaluation probably makes sense, styled sort of like the open leaders questionnaire we've all seen. A global open working group would be great to drive consensus, especially supported by certain funding agencies, which we may know people connected to or not. And then the integration of open practices in research software would be good to keep the sustainability and the recognition of these merits and practices going forward. Ideally, this would result in better products for more user groups across science, in addition to better science. So join me on Twitter. This is Aloris, if you didn't know. Let's keep in touch and help me move this forward. Thanks to my colleagues at McGill and at the M&I, the Neuro, BrainHack and OHBM are awesome if you ever are into brains and want to connect with those communities. The UK Software Sustainability Institute is doing great work. How, you've been amazing. Yo, you're spectacular. OpenSeas, thank all of you. And that's my 6 minutes. Sorry, Yo.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. You do not need to end with a sorry. It was fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so we have a lot of comments that have been piling in. Very impressive. Love the way the difficult topics such as funding is being discussed in an open context. Liking the combination of the open and the realism here. We have a list of challenges, how to measure software in a meaningful and not gameable way. It's so hard.
Oh, that's exactly what I was going to add. Goodhart's Law. Oh, thank you. Okay. You've already done my community, whoever just said that. Metrics are always gameable the second they become metrics, or they're always gamed, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have, how can we follow your progress? I think we have some very on fire questions here.
Twitter. Next steps, I think, are going to be like workshopping this, which means just like talking about it and getting feedback, and like, you know, talking about dreaming about steps forward, writing a white paper maybe in a year, working with certain international agencies, and there's also groups like the International Neuroinformatics Coordinating Facility, which is in neuroinformatics, my corner of the world, though they're based in Sweden. They have a mandate to kind of encourage this sort of thing, standards, models, stop wasting resources, that sort of thing. They could help us get behind this to some extent, though they're not a funding agency. So if anyone knows of any of these sort of NGOs that don't actually fund, but help coordinate, they would be amazing to bring on board from other domains and disciplines. I would love your input on that. In my mind, public conversation is kind of the best, since we're aiming for open practices here. So that's why I'm putting my Twitter handle on here. And I think that's what I wanted to say for now. Does that answer the question? Okay.
I think it does. So we have some more questions. I will ask if you just take a look at the Google Doc and add any more comments in there. And I think we are moving on to Elsa. Elsa, are you ready? Knock, knock. Elsa!
Can you hear me? Elsa, can you hear me?
Sorry, computer is not having a great day today. Let me see if I can share my screen. Sorry about that. If it freezes, it's just. Is it working?
Looks great.
Yeah, is it flicking? Great. Okay, starting my timer. So, hi, I'm Elsa, and I'm just going to present some of my progress and results that I've accomplished over the past 18 weeks. So my presentation is in two parts. One is reflecting more on what I've learned through the project, and then one is sharing some of the high-level results of my work. So in terms of the mushy bits, the things I've learned, they were really, I found that some of the content that was shared during the sessions where the different contributors were brought were really interesting, and I feel like I've realized that because I've already been able to share some of the information I've received with other actors, and I've particularly appreciated the idea of trying to involve a community, not just as a recipient of a project, but as contributor of a project. I've also really enjoyed the mentorship relationship. I feel like I've had bosses in my life and have friends that have been very supportive, but sort of the dynamic that you have with a mentor, and the two fantastic mentors I've had, Daniela and Patricia, that was very interesting to me. And I feel like that this program has prompted me to actually actively seek mentors more and get in contact with them. And I've already started doing that and has had really positive results so far. So definitely something that may not be what you've had intended, but was a plus for me. Things I've learned during this program was that there was definitely a crash between what I expected I would be able to do in terms of capacity and what the reality turned out to be. And there are many different reasons for that. Some of them are sort of out of my control, but it also helped me reflect on what a project needs to have for me to be able to stay in it and sort of corral the time that is necessary for a project to be worked on. And the other thing I've learned working with mentor is that I'm incredibly defensive with sharing my work until I think it's perfect, which actually is really hard for people that I work with. So this is definitely as well a lesson that I feel is worth for me remembering. So that is it with the sort of soft skills that I feel like I've gathered through this program. In terms of hard skills, so my project, there will be a GitHub, and there will be, you know, all the GitHub bits and ways for people to contribute, and bits as well of that I've started to work on. But basically, my project was around helping new PIs transition and set up their own labs using lab manuals. So setting up a lab is a time where young PIs have a chance to create a healthier lab culture. And lab manuals are interesting tools for them to accomplish this, both because lab manuals can present clearly expectations and workflows, and how do you, you know, like book a microscope, things like that. And also because they can set up the tone of the culture of a lab. However, and when young PIs start, and you know, throughout their career, they are often very overwhelmed, lacking time. They might not be connected to the communities where lab manuals are emerging from. And also lab manuals do exist, but they're usually quite difficult to reuse. And they're also quite difficult to find. And even if they are available, PIs might not be inclined to use them because they don't see the utility of them. Finally, they might not be complete. So my project, and I need to run because I have 55 minutes left. Seconds left. So it's splitting into 3 aspects. One is to crawl the existing lab manuals that are out there, make sure that they can be reusable, and examine their content to see if they can be split in smaller chunks that people can reuse at will, rather than have to go through a very long document to find the bits that they find relevant. The second part, which I think is the most interesting, is to try to understand what PI needs. And so do really a review of what they want in the lab manual, what they wouldn't want, why wouldn't they want to have one, how would they like to build one. And so I've already built like an interview that could help gather all those results. And the final point would be to design better tools for people to be able to use those, to design those manuals. And in particular, rather than maybe giving them a manual for them to build upon, have a kit for them to be able to build them within their labs and how to enable these conversations. And so I've already, through my presentation last week, I've already been in touch with a community of people who are working through the similar landscape. So there might be opportunity for collaboration here. And I'm done.
Woohoo! Great job, Elsa. You can stop sharing if you want.
Yes, that would be good.
There
we go.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have some comments coming in. Loving the herding cats picture, loving the kit idea for lab customization, as well as some thanks for the reflection, which I totally agree. It's really nice, like also the personal reflections there. So anyone have any other comments or questions you want to add at the minute?
I think there were quite a few questions last week when I presented that I might not have answered all of them. So I might go back on the document and also put comments there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's been putting comments in throughout all of this. So is there anyone who hasn't gone who would like to do a final presentation? Anyone we accidentally missed? I'm gonna take that to be a no, and looking through the faces, I don't think so. So I think probably for now, the biggest thing is perhaps a huge round of applause for everyone, for yourselves, for going through this amazing program and sharing all of this work. I am so freaking proud of you. It has been such a delight. Does anyone have anything just in general that you want to share or say, or shall we just wrap up? Malvika, Bernice? Malvika, I love that you've added a like graduation ceremony in the background there.
No, I really enjoyed. And this morning I actually missed one person before I started this huge celebration thingy. So it's great that you asked.
Okay, I think with that, I am going to say thank you to everyone, to all of our mentors, to all of our experts, to Malvika, to Berenice, and to all of the project leads, and to our amazing audience who came and joined and watched all of this as well. And I think with a tear in my eye, I'm going to say that the final call of OLS-1 is done. Oh my God. Right, I'm stopping sharing now, folks. If there's anything you want to say